Hi, I'm Wallace Cunningham, Director of Multicultural Outreach with AARP South Carolina. I am here to let you know that AARP is about promoting positive social change, the kind of social change that benefits everyone, especially those persons 50 plus and their families. AARP wants everyone to have a high quality of life. For more information, give us a call at 803-765-7376 or visit our website at aarp.org.
There are 750 million users on Facebook, 200 million on Twitter, and 500 million on YouTube. Who are these people? Your potential customers. TheMinorityEye.com presents the Small Business Social Media Workshop. Saturday, October 1st, 2011, the Clarion Hotel, downtown Columbia, South Carolina. Learn more about and how to use social media to drive customers to your business. Call or visit our website, mysocialmediabiz.net.
Hi, and welcome to this edition of MyMetroTV.com. I'm Frederick Knight. Thank you for joining us this morning. Welcome to Daybreak. First stop to the rest of the weekend. Coming up on today's show, the South Carolina Democrats kick off their 2012 campaign. Michael Bailey has that story for us. Also coming up, had the opportunity to attend the two-day conference for the South Carolina CDCs. Jamal Simmons was their guest speaker. We'll bring you sights and sounds from that event. Also on the way, my conversation with a local entrepreneur who's trying to stimulate the local economy. Metro City Club. Details on that and more. Coming up on this edition of MyMetroTV.com. Daybreak. First stop to the rest of the weekend.
We're here tonight at Richland County Democratic Party kickoff. This marks the beginning of the 2012 election cycle. Democrats laid out their plan to get President Obama elected for a second term. Mr. Summers, tell us a little bit about tonight's event.
Michael, it was a huge turnout tonight. We had over 200 people, over 200 Democrats come together here in the Midlands from all a number of counties all over the Midlands. We have people from Calhoun, Orangeburg, Fairfield, Lexington, Richland, Kershaw. Folks come together and get fired up for 2012 to get people turned out and ready to elect a Democratic slate of candidates for the 2012 election. Almost a year away, and it was amazing to see the energy of this crowd tonight.
Richland County has long been the Democratic stronghold in South Carolina. Tell us a little bit about what the Democrats are planning to do going into the 2012 election cycle.
Well, you're right. I mean, in Richland County in 2010, in this last gubernatorial election, Vincent Sheheen won 68% to 32%. A huge whitewashing right here in the center of the state over Nikki Haley. So for Democrats to be successful, we have to turn out our base and have to turn out our voters as we get geared up for 2012. So part of this effort tonight was to energize our base, have words from the state Democratic Party and let them know what our processes are in place, and to work as hard as we can to re-elect our President of the United States, Barack Obama, in 2012.
I think the key for Democrats in South Carolina is to really engage everyone across the state. What we learned in the last election was it's not enough just to have support in Greenville and Charleston and Columbia. We've got to reach out to the new folks who have moved into South Carolina, let them know the disaster that Republican government has occurred in South Carolina. You know, we have one of the highest unemployment rates in the nation. We've seen education plummet. Republicans have been charged for the last 11 years. We've got to get that message out beyond just Columbia to let people know that the Republican politics, the really far right wing that has taken over South Carolina, is not in our best interest.
South Carolina has one of the first in-South primaries. Republicans have a primary in 2012. Democrats do not. What are some of the things the Democrats will be doing to make sure they stay in the forefront?
I think Democrats will be pointing out when the nut jobs of the Republican parties really attack things that people in this country and in South Carolina love, like Social Security, which is a bedrock of the United States, like a strong defense, like strong police forces in our community. The Republicans are at a point now where they've gone so far to the right where they're attacking things that really matter to just your average South Carolinian. I think it's important for Democrats to say, hey, that's too much. You can only be so crazy before we'll call you out, and that's what you'll see over the next 6 months.
The president's approval rating is at an all-time low. What does that mean for South Carolina that is typically votes Republican?
Well, I think Barack Obama has a real serious challenge, and that is that unemployment is so high in this country. What I would remind people in South Carolina is that we have seen the highest unemployment rates in the nation over the last 10 years while Republicans have been in charge. So things are bad across the country, but they're worse in a state where Republicans have been in charge for the last more than a decade. So if you want a high unemployment rate, you know, the United States is suffering. But if you want a really high unemployment rate, go where Republicans are in charge. I think that's the message that has to be delivered from Democrats.
For Democrats to be successful in South Carolina, Richland County has to come out huge. And so we saw that in 2010, and we intend to do that again in 2012. Especially with all the excitement surrounding Barack Obama. A lot of the huge turnout we had in 2008 were first-time voters coming out, young folks and students. The key is to re-energize those folks, re-energize our base, take our message to independents who are receptive of the Democratic message, and turn those folks out in 2012.
Don't miss An Evening with the Stars, starring the Ohio Players, Miles J. and Sherelle. Saturday, October 1st at the Columbia Metropolitan Convention Center. Register to win a pair of tickets by logging on to mymetrotv.com. Fill out the entry form and get ready to win. The Ohio Players, Miles J. and Sherelle. An Evening with the Stars from mymetrotv.com. Hi, I'm Frederick Knight, the Microphone Doctor, reminding you, join me for Weekends and More on KISS 103.1. The South Carolina Association of Community Development Corporations recently held their two-day conference in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. At the top of their agenda was the need for expansion of broadband into rural South Carolina and the underserved minority communities. I spoke with the association's president and CEO, Bernie Mazyck, about the conference's focus.
CDCs traditionally, for most of us, relate to housing development or community development in a sense. Where does broadband come down in that big picture of community development?
Well, it's a good question. As more of our members see their communities somewhat isolated from the mainstream of information, broadband becomes necessary so that these communities can be connected to the larger world. Usually folk that are in low to moderate income communities, they often don't have access to the training materials and the educational materials that are available to say folk in the urban areas or communities that are more affluent. And so broadband, the access to broadband will help create access to information, access to resources. We know that the banking system is largely going to be going to a paperless system. It's all going to be based on the computer. It's going to be based on managing your finances over the internet. Same thing with medicine. Telemedicine is going to become a big thing where folk are going to be able to track their health records through the internet. So we in the community development arena see the need to develop communities with broadband already integrated into the planning process. And it's not where we need to catch up, it's where we need to stay ahead and think about that on the front end. So that as our CDCs are building and rehabbing homes, we need to start talking to those homeowners and home buyers about having access to the internet, access to broadband, and then make sure we can provide that to those communities.
Okay, you're speaking about improving infrastructure, say for instance in some of these rural communities, the expense that goes into owning a computer or that kind of thing, and most of these folks can't. So where are these folks, say for instance this community we just passed through, Horry County on the outlay. Okay, if we get some money for broadband, where are these people going to actually access? What's going to be the point of access for them to get to broadband?
Well, we're going to have to be working with providers like AT&T, like T-Mobile, like Verizon, to make sure that they are putting the infrastructure in place in these communities. That's where some advocacy takes place. That's where networking on our part and with IIA to make sure that those providers are providing the infrastructure into these communities. It's about advocacy. We've got to help them realize, because yes, we're saying because of the T-Mobile AT&T potential merger that that's going to create access, but not unless we are affirmative about it, unless we are in their face saying we really need you to provide that access to these communities, to Allendale, to Marlboro, to Bennettsville and other rural and isolated communities. So that's going to take advocacy on the part of IIA, the state association, our member CDCs, to interact with these providers to make sure that the infrastructure is there.
The keynote speaker for the conference was Jamal Simmons of the Rabin Group. Jamal is currently the national co-chair for the Internet Innovation Alliance. Jamal had served as a political analyst during the 2008 election campaign for CNN and in 2010 for CBS. I asked Jamal what was the principal mission of the IIA.
The mission of the Internet Innovation Alliance is to expand broadband service and reliability to underserved and unserved communities. Many of those people are in urban areas and they're in rural areas. So in urban areas, a big part of the problem is having reliable service that's always there, always functioning, works like it's supposed to. And in rural areas, a big part of the problem is that they don't actually even have the highest speed service to choose from. So we want to make sure that everybody has the same access to reliable broadband service wherever they are, whoever they are, and wherever they are. So the Internet Innovation Alliance is focused on expanding broadband service to unserved and underserved communities, rural and urban, regardless of race or background. And we think it's going to have a big impact on people in South Carolina because we're focused on changing policies at the federal level that will impact people, particularly in rural communities who don't have access to the highest speed wireless broadband. So that means we want to look at three things. We want to get the Universal Service Fund to go not just for to expand voice service, but also to expand broadband service. We want to do reallocation of the spectrum so that people can take the spectrum that is currently sitting fallow, not being used, and use it more efficiently so that we can get higher quality spectrum to be able to use in many communities. And then we've been focused on, one of our members is AT&T. We've been focused on their AT&T T-Mobile deal because we think that deal is going to get you to about 97% of the country under broadband service, about 55 million more Americans. AT&T is committed to spending about $8 billion in infrastructure expansion, which will go to also increasing employment and jobs around the country. So we think those three kind of things will make sense. I know I'm giving you a long answer, but I'm going to tell you three more things that we want to pay attention to, how it will impact people. It will impact people on telemedicine, meaning that if you're in Greenville, you're going to be able to communicate with a physician in Charlotte or in Columbia or in New York City who can help diagnose you. Your doctor can share test results, can share x-rays, and you get second opinions, all sorts of things. So telemedicine, we look at educational opportunities, students who have access to all the best educational opportunities around the world. And then we look at, the third thing is economic development. And we think people, particularly entrepreneurs and small businesses, will be able to use all the tools that are available through the internet to be able to have more efficient businesses and be able to go into business without having to go through all the upfront costs most people do.
For additional information, log on to the website internetinnovation.org.